This is a good way for us to seg into the MVP discussion. ESPN runs this NBA MVP straw poll. Nikola Jokic, who is the Vegas favorite right now, also the runaway favorite in this straw poll. Windhorse took an exception to it and basically is using like the Sixers Twitter troll argument of, well, Jokic might be MVP, but it's a giant asterisk because Embiid and, Windhorse specifically was talking about LeBron. He's saying, before LeBron got hurt, he was the clear runaway favorite, which is just not true. No. Let's remove that narrative right away. LeBron was in the mix for sure, but in no way was he the runaway favorite. But yeah, Wendy was.
Well, pissed. You gotta make sure that you take care of the guy who carried you on his back to make you famous, I guess.
That is true, but of all people to appreciate a fat white guy like Nikola Jokic, I would think Wendy would be the one to do it.
Oh boy! Wow. Okay, I see. I thought I brought the heavy artillery, and then you just came in with
we got to bring the spice today. If we're talking about Jokic and Embiid, which has just been a war zone for the last month.
Wow, Bryan. Damn. Okay, you know what? I can sense that you have indeed become a parent, because that, my friend, is the side of someone who has not had a lot of sleep over the past month or so.
That's true. You give 0 Fs after.
Yep.
Yeah.
Welcome, Bryan. Truly, this was your moment into parenthood.
Good.
Welcome.
Well, so I'm going to preface this by saying I wrote something at the step back today where I said we should, Sixers Twitter and Nuggets Twitter have been at each other's throats in the last couple weeks in particular about the MVP race.
Years.
Yeah, well, This year in particular, yes, the Jokic Embiid debate has been simmering for a while, but now when these two guys emerge as the two front runners for MVP, it's just reached a boiling point, and we've gotten to the point where, all of Nuggets Twitter is complaining about Embiid being a free throw grifter who ducks, pretends to be hurt, so he ducks all marquee matchups. And all of Sixers Twitter is making fat jokes about Jokic and saying he doesn't play defense and you can't be an MVP if you only play one end of the court. So, at the step back, I wrote, and look, these guys are very different in what makes them so dominant, but we can and should enjoy them both. So, as many fat Jokic jokes as I have made, and I probably will make in this episode, no, it is not coming from a place of malice. I genuinely enjoy watching the guy, and if I had to pick today, Nikola Jokic would be my MVP. And I think I said this in the midseason awards. I said Embiid was my pick at the moment, but I said Jokic had a really good chance of closing ground or even taking the lead position in the second half of the season. I was looking at after the All-Star break, their schedule was super soft. I thought they were going to move up the standings. They did. I didn't see the Aaron Gordon acquisition coming from a mile away, but that, even lended further credence to Jokic as an MVP candidate. So, what he has done right now is deserved. He is the deserved front runner in this race. That said, I'm going to toss it to you in a second, Mort, but I will say, I wrote something at Forbes today too about how Embiid can close the gap. So I'm as much as I believe Jokic, if the season ended today, would be the MVP, I think there is still a little bit of room for someone to overtake him. But who would you go with if you had to pick today?
I have 4 candidates.
Okay.
And full disclosure, LeBron is not on that.
Because of the injury?
Yeah, and also I think these 4 players have played better. I'm actually getting a little bit tired of always having to preface, not to you, but generally speaking, I think we as an NBA community, whenever we exclude LeBron for something, we always have to preface it.
Well, yes.
You know what? No, but I mean, it's not just because of the injuries. He is at a point in his career where, and he has been for a while, where the regular season has not meant as much, where he has what's the word, I don't think coasted is the right word, and I've used that in the past, and that's on me. I don't think he's coasted, but it hasn't been clear that that's where his priority is. And again, to reiterate, this damn award is a regular season award. I think that matters. So the four guys that I have right now are Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, obviously, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Kawhi Leonard.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm actually surprised you didn't really give me some shit here for having Kawhi. No, you just said which I appreciate. Yeah.
You've been running with that horse all year. I'm not going to stop you now.
No, I think he's definitely worthy of consideration. Is he going to win it? No, I think ultimately Jokic is going to win it. If we're going off prediction, I think Nikola Jokic is going to win it. But I do think you are right in terms of this whole race can get closed in. I think there are candidates who can just do some damage in the final. Oh boy, what are we, like 15 games, 20 games?
Yeah, like 15, 16. Depending on,
15, 16.
Some teams have played more than others, but yeah.
Right. Okay, so let's say Kawhi goes on a late season tear. Averages around 30, 31 points per game, 8 boards, 5+ assists, shooting fantastically, playing his all-world defense. And the Clippers, by the way, are doing really well. I did a video on them last week, which I just want to hit this up here. That video is doing numbers, Brian.
Nice.
It really is. Yeah. So I think the Clippers are being overlooked. I think they are an elite team. And because of last season, we just have this tendency of saying, well, they're not that important. They lost in the playoffs. It doesn't mean jack shit. Mm-hmm. Wow, I'm back to cursing like a sailor today. My apologies. But the great Phil Jackson once said, if you win 40 before you lose 20, you're an elite team. Mm. The Clippers are 40-19. And they are 40-19 despite having both Kawhi and Paul George missing games and whatnot. So that's almost a counter argument to Kawhi because they have some depth and they have quality on their roster. That said, when he plays, and this is definitely more of an eye test thing, I will grant you that. But this whole team just goes up an entire level when he's on the court. Their defense is suffocating. And when he has that rock and he's starting to initiate the offense and he's coming off screens and he's shooting and he's aggressive, this team is so tough, Brian. It's uncanny. And I think we just can't go entirely off of stats anymore. Like Nikola Jokic right now, I think is... Well, I was about to say he has the best stat line in the NBA, but if we're being honest, it's probably Westbrook, right? Like in terms of just the raw stats.
Well, I mean, are you taking field goal percentage into the equation?
No, okay. Like just the raw fan stats, as I like to call it, like points, rebounds, assists, right? But of the foursome here, I think Jokic has the best stat line.
Yeah.
But I think it would pretty easy to make the argument that Kawhi of these four have the worst stat line. Like he said, 25.7 points, 6.7 rebounds, 5.1 assists. But it's the influence on the court. I mean, at no point can you and I sit through a Kawhi game and not go, that dude is good. That dude is all world at all the time. And I just think at one point we are going to be having the debate of whether or not Kawhi Leonard will be, getting screwed from a career perspective of never having won an MVP. Sort of like his former teammate, Tim Duncan, never won a Defensive Player of the Year award, which was still and is still a travesty. I think we at least need to acknowledge that Kawhi is playing at an MVP caliber quality or level. Yeah. And he's not getting the full recognition of that because the whole discourse has been Jokic Embiid, and all that. And then, of course, let me just throw in Giannis here. Voter fatigue, which is always such a BS excuse. I think you need to vote for the guy who's been the best player. Now, Giannis is taking a step down statistically, just a little bit. I don't think that matters a whole lot. I still think he's as dominant as ever. Yeah. But he's also missed games, and there's also this component of him having lost in the playoffs 2 years in a row that's working against him. But I don't know. I think those two guys should be brought up more so than they are because the whole discourse has just been the two centers. I think Giannis and Kawhi needs to have a larger presence in this debate.
Yeah, and I think they'll both get votes. Like, I think, what Giannis, I think, will probably finish third in the race at this point. And I think Kawhi he might probably somewhere in the top 5, I would think. Like, Harden will be in there, LeBron will be in that mix, Curry maybe, Dame, Luka. Like, there are a lot of deserving candidates, so someone's going to get snubbed. But I think all of those guys should be in the mix for sure. I think the thing, you mentioned how Giannis's stats have fallen off a bit from last year, and Kawhi and LeBron, they're just kind of in line with their like recent peaks or recent career averages rather than putting up new career high numbers. So I think in a normal year that shouldn't matter, but when you have a year like this where Embiid and Jokic are both setting career highs kind of across the board, that's where, I don't know if it's necessarily voter fatigue, but it's like, oh, okay, we've settled into this, we've come to expect this level of greatness from you, LeBron James. Like 25 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists, that's just your new normal. And it's elite for any other player in the NBA, but for you, you've spoiled us for so long that it's not as special. Whereas, Luka doing the same thing, it's more special for him because we just haven't seen it for as long. Like, we'll reach that level one day with Luka, too, where it's like, okay, you're averaging 38 and 8. Great. We're not going to give you MVP until you're 35, 10, and 10. Embiid and Jokic are both, Jokic had never scored more than around 20 points per game before this year. He's at 26. He had never averaged more than 7.3 assists. He has an 8.8. He's shooting 56.7 from the field. That's the second highest of his career. 42 from 3, by far the highest of his career. Career high from the free throw line as well. And the Nuggets offense is substantially better with him on the floor. The entire team, they shoot like 8 percentage points better with him on the floor. That it's like close to 51% with him on the floor, close to 43 with him on the bench. So that passing unlocks everything around his teammates as well. The things that I think are working in Embiid's favor in terms of potentially closing the gap. One, the Sixers have 4 nationally televised games this week, and that might sound stupid, but this seems like Matt Moore of the Action Network said this the other day, and I thought it was phrased really well, especially in the wake of the Windhorst pod, where I think voters know right now that Jokic deserves MVP, but I don't think they're excited about it. So if Joel Embiid goes out, they play the Warriors tonight, the Suns Wednesday, the Bucks Thursday and Saturday. If Embiid goes out, averages 35 points, 13 rebounds, leads the Sixers to go 3-1 or 4-0 over that stretch, that's just going to get a national conversation going throughout this week. They play the Hawks twice next week, who have been, we talked about it the other day, they've been really sneakily good since Nate McMillan took over. So if the Sixers end April with the number 1 seed in the East, they should be in cruise control at that point. The Reds, their schedule in May is pretty soft, so that's going to help, with the narrative of, at least this guy's led the Sixers to the number 1 seed, staved off this star-studded Nets team, whereas the Nuggets, they're a game and a half up on the Lakers for 4th place in the West, but, lost Jamal Murray for the year. Lakers are getting back Anthony Davis and LeBron James within the next week or two, it seems. So there's a chance that the Nuggets fall out of that 4 spot. I don't think they're going to fall beyond 5. They're 4 games up on Portland right now. But, if the narrative of like the Sixers are surging while the Nuggets are falling back to the pack a little bit, that could also help Embiid's case. And then, it's the availability is the big argument also in Jokic's favor. He hasn't missed a single game this year. Embiid has missed, I think, 18 at this point. I would guess that he is not going to want to miss any more games if health permitting. Like, they play a couple back-to-backs against garbage teams in May, and they really, looking ahead to the playoffs, probably should not play him. But he's very adamantly stated that he wants to be MVP, so it wouldn't surprise me if he plays and they just lay the smack down and he only has to play 20 minutes of those games. So, I think if he ends up missing even more time, that might be the final nail in his coffin. And even if he does play all remaining games, I mean, there still might be too much of a gap in terms of games played minutes played, Jokic already has a 700-minute advantage over Embiid in that department. But I just don't think this race is completely, entirely over yet.
I would agree. It's funny, like, so you have Joel who wants to be MVP, you have Ben Simmons who desperately wants to be DPOY,
Yep.
and I do mean desperately. The last time the Sixers have that duo was Allen Iverson, Dikembe Mutombo in the 2000-2001 season.
And it ended up pretty well for them.
They lost in the finals, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the furthest they've gotten in 20 years. I would take that.
No. So actually, I want to rewind to Matt Moore's comment because I think that's interesting. Like, the voters won't love it or the voters won't find it interesting. What was the phrasing?
I don't remember. Like, they're not excited about it, something like
excited.
that.
Excited, okay. Can we just talk about, if that's true, of course, how dumb that would be? Why would you not be excited about what Nikola Jokic is doing? Why is he not exciting? What he's doing out there is basketball porn.
Yeah. I if I had to guess, it's because a couple things. One, one of the biggest factors in his case is like all of the advanced metrics. Like, he leads the league in win shares per 48 and box plus minus and value over replacement player. And this is, the old stodgy, we don't care about analytics, we would trust the eye test, blah, 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 blah. So, like, they don't want to defer to who leads the league in all of these metrics.
But, like, he's dominating the eye test, too.
I know. But that's the other thing, I think, is just he's, like, I don't want to say he isn't flashy, but I think some of his, like, there's a difference between him throwing a dazzling pass and a teammate, completing an awesome dunk or something, or hitting a wide open shot, and Joel Embiid, like, beating a triple team and either dunking on someone or, like, hitting a Dirk one-legged fadeaway over 4 outstretched arms. Like, it's just, it aesthetically looks more impressive, even though...
Does it?
Well, that's even though a 6'11" guy throwing the type of passes that Jokic doesn't make any sense. Like, we've never seen it before.
I find Jokic so much more entertaining than Embiid.
I could see. I mean, yeah, if you don't like watching a guy go to the free throw line 15 times a game, I wouldn't blame you.
I mean, honestly, that's not why. I think getting to the free throw line is a skill, so I can appreciate the way that he does it. But yeah, it's fair. It does slow the game down just a little bit, but it's not so much that. It's just how Nikola is in charge of the off. I mean, this is a 7-footer. Mm-hmm. This is a 7-footer who is essentially playing the point guard position. Like, how is that not fun? That is literally everything, 15-year-old us wanted back in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
When Kevin Garnett was a small forward and all of that. That was what the NBA was trying to do for so many years, was let's see if we can turn all these big guys into small guys. And it never really worked out. Now it does. We finally have a perfect example. We have a 7-footer who plays like a damn point guard. Are you not entertained?
I am. That's why I wrote my piece at the step back. Like, right. I want both of these guys to thrive, and it makes me happy that we've seen both of them as dominant as they are this year. This is like what we hoped both guys could turn into. So I just hope in all of this MVP debate that's going to happen over the next couple weeks, like, you're naturally going to tear down one guy to build up your case for the other. But I want us to keep it in perspective how great both of these guys are and how enjoyable both have been to watch this year. Because hopefully the developments they both made this year are here to stay, and they're just going to keep building, and they're going to be even better next year. But we just don't know that, right? Like, this could end up being the best season of both of their careers. And I would hate if we spent the entire season pissing it away, talking about, oh, well, Jokic is great, but Embiid is better. Or, oh, Embiid is great, but Jokic is better. Like, just enjoy the two dudes.
Right. Which is why I hope that both of them leave their teams to join forces at one point. Ooh. Just so we can see Philly fans and Nuggets fans completely implode on Twitter.
That would do it. That would definitely do it.
That would definitely do it. And especially if there's a common enemy. I don't know if it's the Lakers or someone else. Like, if there is a common enemy between the two fan bases and they go there, I would love it. Love it.